movement, a technique so mandatory that if you master it, you become a literal god, up there next to Zeus himself. Movement is an essential part in many sports, and it's no different when it comes to Valorant.
LeBron James, a shot in history.
So today I'm going to teach you, yes, you, how to move like a Chad. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about may come as a surprise to people, but I want to talk about the importance of using your shift key correctly. All too much I see players giving away free info to the enemy by just randomly running when it's not needed. Alright, shift up will contact explode onto A.
No, he wasn't.
Hold your fucking shift key. I'm talking to you, Timmy. Now, I'm not saying to hold it all the time, which puts me on to the next point. Stop holding your goddamn shift key when peeking angles. You're a sitting duck when you do this, since you move like a snail when swinging the corner. You can actually swing angles without making noise at all. You walk a direction for 1 second and then either switch directions or stop. This completely stops the step noise from ever happening and keeps you mobile while peeking corners. Now, I highly suggest you go into the range to practice this, as it's one of those things that you can only learn by getting a feel for it. Now, adding on to the technique called silent peeking, I suggest doing something that you may have heard high elo players talk about all the time. It's a movement technique called slicing the pie.
Yeah.
So when should you be using slicing the pie? Well, basically when you have some cover and you want to clear dangerous parts of the map. So here's a quick example of slicing the pie. As you can see from the example, you're isolating each potential fight by only exposing yourself to one angle at a time. Now, I highly suggest implementing a jiggle peek of some kind. This will make yourself way more mobile, so it will make you harder to hit. Now, crosshair placement also has an important place in this technique. I usually pre-aim where I'm going to peek when slicing the pie, so my crosshair is already on my target if they happen to be there. Give me the best chance at winning that gunfight. Now, obviously I only went over the basics of slicing the pie. If you want a more in-depth explanation of it, I've gone ahead and linked a video below that dives deep into the technique of it. Whilst we are on the subject of moving silently, I want to go over some very niche, forbidden techniques you can use to catch your opponents off guard and save you a few seconds.
1,000 years of death!
Now, the first forbidden technique is called silent bunny hopping. In order to silent bunny hop, you need to be either going up a set of stairs, a ledge, or a slope, and you just hold your shift key whilst bunny hopping. Unfortunately, this only works when going on an incline, but lucky enough, there are heaps of places that go up, and I'm not just talking about my dick. Your imagination is the key when it comes to this technique, so go and find some niche uses for it. Now, the second forbidden technique is called the silent rope fall. I'm sure you see pros do this all the time. To perform this, all you need to do is hold your S or whatever key you use to walk backwards. Not sure why you'd ever change this, but I have to account for the freaks out there. Anyway, shift off so you fall, hold your S key and also your shift key. Before you hit the bottom, attach yourself to the rope. Good job, you did it! Now that wasn't so hard, was it? Okay, enough about niche movement techniques. Let's talk about the real meat and potatoes of movement. We all want to know how to move in gunfights, right? The most useful technique you can learn is a thing called deadzoning. And now you've probably heard everyone talk about deadzoning. And that's because it's just too good not to mention. I see a lot of people still not doing this technique, so I'm going to mention it again. If you live under a rock and have no clue what deadzoning is, it is the art of strafing in a direction, then strafing the other direction, which opens up a small window where you can shoot one bullet accurately whilst moving. This is to not be confused with counter-strafing. Counter-strafing is the art of strafing a direction, then strafing the other direction to stop slightly faster. This does not work in Valorant, however, because if you let go of the movement keys, you instantly stop anyway. So it adds on unnecessary time to stop, which is a disadvantage over just letting go of your keys. Back to deadzoning. In order to learn this technique, we're going to go onto the practice range and get our graph up. Video, stats, down here, graph. Toggle that on. Now you see this wood pillar here in the middle? I want you to practice it here, shooting only one side of it at first. So A, D, shoot. See, the graph, it's orange. If it's blue, you did it wrong. You got to get the timing right. Just look at that graph. Then when you grow 6 inches in just 7 days, you can move on to doing it on both sides of the pillar like this. Now for you absolute legends that have seen my video previously on aim, you already seen me talk about the importance of burst shooting and moving after every burst. Now, I want you to combine dead zoning with bursting in your next deathmatch. A fight should look something like this: dead zone, burst. Or dead zone, burst. If you miss your burst, move again and then burst again. I want you to constantly move after shooting. You can even dead zone when peeking from cover. So swing out, dead zone, back to cover like this. It's a super useful technique and you can use it pretty much everywhere. Dead zoning will keep you mobile, making you a way harder target to hit and a lot less likely to get one-tapped and feel terrible. Now let's touch a little on peeking, and I'm not referring to drugs. So how should you peek? Well, the problem is it all comes down to the situation. Sometimes a wide swing is good, sometimes a jiggle, jump peek, quick peek, backflip 360 peek, so many peeks. What the fuck do you do? Hush now, little Timmy. Let me guide you. Now this is going to sound super basic, but just put yourself in the enemy's shoes. Literally. I feel like not many of us actually do this at all. I'll give you an example here on Ascent. You're holding tiles. A massive angle advantage. You have an op. What are you the most scared of from the enemy? Obviously utility, but from a peek perspective. Most likely a jump peek, or if you're holding incredibly close, a wide swing may put you off completely. Why not even combine the two if you have a teammate nearby? Get someone to jump peek and then wide swing straight after to try and get the kill. If you're struggling a little with knowing what to do in certain situations when it comes to peeking, I've linked Woohoojin's video below called Movement Mastery Part 2. He shows off many situations and tells you how to properly take the gunfight. Do you look like this? That's because you aren't peeking with a purpose. When you peek, you should be expecting an enemy there even if there isn't. I see this heaps, people peek and they don't expect anyone to be there, making their reaction to the situation incredibly slow. So make sure you picture someone playing the angle you're swinging, no matter what. Peek with a purpose. Don't fall asleep at the wheel. Wake up, Timmy! Wake the f*** up! Now let's go over something called the T rule. The T rule is a rule I learnt from Royal G, which basically means you should peek every angle like a T. The reason you peek like this is so that you max out your movement speed when swinging the angle, making you a way harder target to hit. When you peek with the T rule, make sure you're only using A and D. Do not press W. I swear to God, if I see you press W, I'm gonna... Furthermore, if you have your back to the wall when peeking, it'll lower your overall movement speed. This will make you a way easier target to hit and make that angle advantage you think you were getting basically useless. TLDR, do speed, kids. Now, of course, peeker's advantage is a real thing. But lots of us, including high elo players, forget about holding off angles. Off angles are incredibly strong and they are criminally underused. 9 times out of 10, you win by just holding an off angle when someone is peeking into you. Well, screw 9, 10 times out of 10. It's that good, start using them. Obviously, I went over bursting and dead zoning, but people think this is the only way to approach a gunfight. They think crouch spraying is the worst thing in the world and you should never do it. This is so wrong and leads me into the next thing. Knowing when to crouch spray. So when should you crouch spray? Well, listen here, Timmy, you little f***. You crouch spray when you know the first bullet is going to hit. Also, when you're in a higher elo, sorry Timmy, this won't apply to you, players tend to trade their teammates a lot more. It becomes very beneficial to kill the first enemy and then crouch spray as the guy is trading his teammate. Since you won't have enough time to reset or run away, it'll give you a better chance at winning that gunfight. This all ties into gun hygiene, which I've already covered in my previous video, so go check it out. Go click it, watch it. Now don't get it twisted, your default shouldn't be to crouch spray. Your default should be to dead zone and burst it first, and then move into a spray if it's appropriate. As we all know by now, practice makes perfect. Now let's get a routine going so you can actually be good at the game. Feel free to pause this or come back to it at the end of the video. Now instead of standing still and shooting the bots in the range, I want you to do this dead zone drill instead. Select easy bots, and then overflick and readjust with your movement keys onto the head of the bot. Just before you shoot, move the opposite direction so you dead zone the bullet. Try to kill around 20 bots on this drill and then move on to medium bots to do the exact same. Also aim for 20 again. This drill will help you to learn how to readjust your aim with your movement while also improving your dead zoning skills. Once you're pretty confident, let's head into Deathmatch. In Deathmatch, I want you to practice combining dead zoning with burst shooting, as well as crouch spraying in certain situations. Also, don't be scared to try out holding off angles even if it pisses people off. Just mute them. You can even practice some of the tech I've already touched on in this video, such as silent rope fall, or come up with some cool ideas for silent bunny hops. Also, if you have a problem with holding W when you're peeking angles, bind your W key to your melee key so you pull your knife out when pressing W. This will quickly fix that issue for you. Last but not least, I want you to start thinking more about how the enemy plays on the other team. If you know someone is in a certain angle, think about yourself in that situation and what you are most scared of. That's how you're going to peak them. If these tips helped you, consider leaving a like and subscribing as it helps me out greatly. Thank you all for watching, and remember, stay consistent.